What's going on, good people? Welcome back to another episode of Trading My Live Account. Today is day number 51. It's August the 21st, 2023. We made some trades today, so let's get into it. First and foremost, let's talk about our important levels that we have on the chart today. So we have yesterday's closing price represented by this purple line right here towards the middle of the chart, and that price level would be 34,582. Now that'll play an important role today, and we'll see about that a little bit later. And other than that, we have this one zone located up here towards the top of the chart, and this was drawn off of a consolidation from a downtrend during the pre-market. So I just saw prices come down. They formed a low right here, and then as soon as they came back to form a lower high, that's where I boxed the zone up. So I took the swing low and the lower high and then just extended that throughout the market. Now actually came back to be a valuable zone for trade number 2. So let's go ahead and get into it. So let's talk about trade 1. So we can see that coming into the screenshot, we were in a downtrend pretty strong. Every time we broke past a new low, we would come back to retest that level. So we did the same thing right here. After we broke out of the zone, we finally came back, retested it, and then we moved away. So then you see that we created the next low right here at this price level at around 34,600. So as soon as we broke back down below that price level, I just looked for prices to come back, retest that previous low, and then I went short right here on one. Now on this occasion, my break even got hit, and I think I did a good job today of being disciplined, because one of my biggest rules is to always respect the break even trade. My break even stop is about halfway to my profit target. So if the prices move that much, my break even automatically gets triggered. So at that point, I look at it as if prices come back to my entry after my break even has been triggered, then something needs to be looked at one more time. I think one of the things that I was doing wrong last week and the week before was I was kind of getting away from respecting my break even trades, and I was saying, you know what, it's break even, but it's gonna work, so I'm gonna get back in again, and then I would take a loss on top of that. So good job of having discipline and just respecting the break even trade, and that was a good decision because we see that prices did continue up, which would have stopped me out. But look at where they actually continue up to. They came back to retest this previous pivot point right here. So notice how the uptrend was, well, not the uptrend, but the buy-in was continuing all the way up until we got to this point. And if you look at it, that is the last previous low, right? So we came back to retest that. That makes sense. So sometimes the market won't come back and retest that most previous low that got made. Sometimes it'll come back and test not only the previous one, but the one that happened before that. And you'll see a double top type of formation where they come back, retest that level, and then immediately get rejected, which we saw today. This happens actually pretty often. And we're actually going to see this happen a little bit later on trade 3. So let's go ahead and keep moving. So this move actually brought us all the way back to yesterday's closing price. But then once we hit that level, we created a higher low. So, you know, anytime you see a higher low, no matter how strong you think the downtrend might be, you have to respect that higher low, because that's the buyers telling you that at this one particular moment, they're stronger than the seller. So you don't want to start selling until you see the seller start to step back in by way of a lower high getting made, or maybe some type of bearish candlestick pattern like a bearish engulfing, something like that of that nature. So once you see this higher low, you can draw your level of support across. So you could draw your level of support on the wick, extend that, and then as you see, prices came back to actually retest what that level of support would have been down here towards the wicks. Now they did wick past it a little bit, but if you look at where they closed right there on that level, and then from that point forward we see prices move up, create another higher low that actually kind of lined up with that ellipse that we drew from earlier, and then we see prices continue as the market starts to open at 9:30. So once we created this next higher low up here at trade number 2, I drew my circle around the pivot point, and then I slapped my level of support across the lows for that wick, for that higher low, and then I just waited for prices to come back into that level, and as they did, I went long. And then the only thing about this trade, it was a great entry. I read the market the right way, but when it comes to those exits, you really got to be super quick. You might try and hold out for those extra points, but the market moves, and when it does, you got to make sure that you get what you can. Now in this scenario, I have my profit target somewhere towards the middle of the zone, not exactly at the top wicks of this one candle right here, but a little bit just slightly below that. I believe it was at 33. Now, if you look at this candle right here, it came all the way back up to test the zone, and I think the high for this candle was actually 31. So it was 2 points away, but on this candle before, I think this was 29 or something like that. Now, when it came back up to touch the zone, that's where I should have had my exit target at. But as I saw prices start to kind of move away, I just closed the trade manually. Still made a decent little profit, but definitely could have been more. But that's something I got to work on. I feel like in that moment, the market moves so fast that I did the best I possibly could. But going forward in the future, I would say that I should just put my exit order right there at the zone. I could have more by putting my target somewhere towards the middle, but we have a good idea that pretty much is coming back to test the top of the zone. So in situations like that, just remember, place your order there before it gets there, so that way you don't have to chase the market as it starts moving really quick, especially towards the open. Because if you look at this trade, it happened within the first 8 minutes of the market being open. So you should expect for prices to see some type of a strong reaction as soon as they get to the zone. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. So then after trade 2, we see prices come back down. Once they got rejected from the zone, they shot straight down all the way back to yesterday's closing price. And then the downtrend continued. And we know that the downtrend continued because we see prices pull up and come back to retest what used to be a previous low. And then they got rejected. So that's telling us that the downtrend is definitely back on. So once I saw that, that's when I flipped my bias back over to the short side and I started looking for all of my trades. So I had a potential entry to get in right here as prices came back and retested this wick, but I was more so aiming for prices to come back and retest this body right here, which is okay. You know, in a downtrend, you would prefer to be able to short from higher prices. So even though I saw the short trade from right here at the wick, I missed out because I had my order right here, but that's a trade that I'm okay with missing. But it just showed me that the downtrend is definitely strong. So then as we pull down, I created this zone based off of the same concept that I used for this zone in the pre-market. We saw prices come down, find a low, and then create a lower high. So in this same scenario, we had prices come down, find a low, create a lower high right here, and then that's where you can box the zone up. So I look to go short on trade 3 as prices came back to retest this level of resistance that used to be a previous low. Now it's hard to tell, but if we zoom in and we actually study the formation of the candles, let's look at this. So start from support level right here after we got rejected. So we come down, come down, come down. Now let's start analyzing on this candle right here. So notice how this candle at one point was completely red all the way down to the bottom of the zone, but it closed significantly away from its lows. So that shows us that it was some type of buying pressure down there. And then we open up on this next candle and we actually pushed up to the upside. So at one point in time, this candle right here was actually green and it was above the zone. So I looked at that as a place where the market saw buyers and saw demand, which pretty much equals a low. It's kind of complicated and kind of hard to see unless you really study the wicks, but that right there was the low, the intersection of the closing price for this one long tail candle wick and the opening price for this one. So as soon as prices came back up to retest that level, I shorted and then looked to take it back down a little bit past the zone. And after that, I decided to call it a day. You know, I just wanted to come in, make some really good trades, be in line with the trend, and then just call it. Because my overall goal this week is to make 100 points on the Dow Jones. So today I made 8 points off of this one and I made 22 off of this one. So 30 in total. Made nothing from this one, so -0, still 30. So that means that I have another 70 points to go. So I want to come in this week and just do what I've done today, which is trade in line with the trend. Don't try and outsmart the market. Just analyze the price action, identify which way it's moving, and then place your orders at the best possible levels according to your strategy. And that's my only plan that I have for this week. I think the biggest thing that I went wrong on last week was just being too excited because I studied too much and I was like, ooh, I'm about to go into the market and kill it this week. It's like, okay, yeah, you can do that, but you got to be disciplined and you got to be focused. So good job today. I want to go ahead and keep that moving. So I hope you guys learned a lot today about downtrends and understanding that prices are usually going to come back to retest that lower high. And also I want you guys to remember that sometimes they might come back and retest the first two lower highs, not just the previous one. So also keep that in mind as well. But overall, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you learned a lot, because I know I did. I'll be back tomorrow on August 21st, somewhere between 9:30 and 9:40. The live trading session for today is up right now in my live video section, as well as my trading my scalping strategy playlist. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. And that's all I got. So until tomorrow, you guys, take it easy.